now back to Ms. Stancho. Ms. Stancho, please, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, again, on the February 2024 that you created this multidisciplinary team, who you said that it sort of brought people together to work on this issue. Is it folks at this table, or who other outside the RCMP was engaged in this at that time?
So you would have some of the normal partners that we have: CSIS, CSC, CBSA, FinTrack, RCC, RCMP, multiple sections within the RCMP, and obviously police jurisdiction when we look at the extortion cases in Alberta, Toronto, and BC.
Global affairs included in that?
I don't think so. This was more on a, well, I do have others where DOJ and GAC, but most of it is all the, I'd say the practitioners when it comes to law enforcement or security mandate. Okay.
It's my understanding from this testimony and others that it was about 8 weeks before this announcement on October 14th that the RCMP sort of came together with the other officials at this table. Is that correct?
No, in the sense that Madame Drouin did say, or Mr. Morrison said, about 8 weeks when we started planning on the diplomatic side. But there have been regular briefings as to just to inform the speed and flow of the investigation.
Mr. Drouin had mentioned there were diplomatic outreach to India in November 2023. That was the first of this event. Is that correct, Mr. Drouin? Can you just correct me? You had said it in your opening statement.
So back then in August 2023, it is important to remember that we were talking about the Niger murder, while what we have talked about since Thanksgiving is a broader set of violences in Canada. But regarding the Niger murder, we have started our diplomatic outreach with India in August 2023, so prior to the Prime Minister's statement. And as I testified, we had many other meetings with them.
Did you have other conversations with the Prime Minister following his statement in the House of Commons on September 18th between then and in the few weeks leading up to October 14th of this year?
The Commissioner said, Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner offered, and I said that also in my opening remarks, several updates on this file to the Prime Minister and myself over the last year.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to understand, we had this unprecedented event where the Prime Minister stood in the House of Commons and made this quite extraordinary claim that India was responsible for the murder of, Canadian. And then 11 months later, on October 14th, 2024, we see that there was quite a phenomenal escalation of the concern to those in Canada and Canadian citizens and others from India. So from an outsider perspective, there was that statement made in the House of Commons, and things got extraordinarily worse despite the number of efforts you have outlined that you have made in that time. I'm trying to understand where the failure was to stop this. Perhaps you can shed some light on that, Ms. Drouin. Why were all these efforts that you've said that you've done, why were they not successful? It got to a point where 13 individuals were in peril 11 months later.
Le commissaire l'a dit, et je le...
The Commissioner said it, and I repeat, for many years now, there have been investigations about violence against Canadians of Indian origin on Canadian soil. One of the reasons, and you're completely right in saying that violence has escalated, unfortunately, after August 2023, and it's precisely that escalation of violence that led the RCMP to having talks with Global Affairs Canada so that we can look at the use of all available tools to put a stop to that network of violence. And the first thing that needed to be done was to make this network of data collection impossible.
By concluding a few moments, it seems like it took prompting from the RCMP for Global Affairs and yourself to really insist on this quite unprecedented diplomatic action to expel 6 diplomats. Why did it take the RCMP sort of initiating those conversations to get it to such a point?
Une chose que je pourrais rajouter,
One thing I could add is that in 2023, we worked on the basis of intelligence, credible intelligence on the involvement of India in Nijar's murder. What we've been talking about publicly in the past 2 weeks is the result of serious investigations. So I think it's important to make that distinction. It's the very hard work of multidisciplinary teams led by the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner that allowed us to shed light on this stratagem. There's the ones who realized that investigations were to continue, but while they continued, we had to take the action necessary to put an end to this network of violence.
I lost track, maybe 4, 5, 6, 9 times. My friend was keeping track in her opening question, so I think the people who are being overly partisan are perhaps on the other side of the table today. But anyways, we've got a serious issue ahead of us. They can smirk, they can laugh, but let's get into some of the questions here. First to Mr. Morrison and Mr. Uan. An NSCOP report from 2019 stated that CSIS observed an increase in Indian threat-related activity targeting the Indo-Canadian, diaspora and government institutions. This same NSCOP report found that Indian consular officials were maintaining blacklists of dissidents, controlling travel visas to India, and recruiting community sources that were engaging MPs and political candidates to advance Indian objectives. Given that each of your organizations presumably read this report at the time and knew about these activities dating back to at least 2019, which very clearly fall outside of the norm of diplomatic activity, why did the government wait until these threats had escalated to the point of violence and murder to expel any consular officials?
I think as Natalie said and has been testified to today, the various parts of the government have been live to the issue of foreign interference for a number of years and have been taking all kinds of measures when the situation reached its apex, as has been described, and as the RCMP has said, when they came to us and sought our help, we then used one of our heaviest diplomatic tools, which was the persona non grata tool. But I wouldn't assume that Indian foreign interference was not a constant subject of discussion throughout that time period, 2019 until the present, in all of our interactions with India.
Mr. Roon, would you like to?
l'Inde est aussi
India is also a priority for the work of the service. So when it comes to the resources we deploy to identify various strategies by India, that's one of the countries we concentrate on more.
To Mr. Duham, thank you for being here today. Through a lot of the reports we've read and a lot of the indications that a lot of this crime that we're talking about is going on here is being funneled through organized crime groups that are here in Canada. What have we done, or what have you done, or what have your group or the government done to disrupt the communication lines between organized crime groups and the Indian government to ensure this doesn't continue?
Well, the fact, Mr. Chair, that we came out publicly, that was one of the strategies we had to ensure that the message is out and that the community is aware and the community will report it, making sure that people from the community do not fall victims to influence and whatnot. And it's continuing to work with our government departments as to maintaining not oversight, but a view of what's going on in Canada with regards to the government of India's influence on criminal activities in Canada.
Thank you for that.